My name is Bergs, or that's what most people call me. My name is actually Berg. I came here after studying English and translations and figured I might as well go and study in a place that I've studied about. So I'm studying international relations in a master's degree. It's a weird story. So when I was looking into schools in the UK, I was looking into if I could do like placements and different things instead of writing a dissertation. And moved all alone to a new country, to a new city I'd ever even heard of. Started a life here in Preston and got to meet a bunch of new classmates, one of whom brought me with her to church one day. I was raised in a church in Iceland and I loved to participate. Maybe I was made to participate in the beginning, but eventually fell in love with it and went to Bible school and did a whole lot of different things. Some things happened and I fell out of love with the church, fell out with some people in the church, and I decided that I was just gonna leave it for a little bit and see if I could heal my heart and if the community could also heal. And when I came out here, I didn't have a lot of friends. I had about 5 people to talk to, and those were all my classmates, and there's only so much time that you can expect of 5 people to meet up with you and have coffee and whatnot. One night I'm having a really rough time after class, and my classmate Bethany, she's like, oh hey, why don't you come to Alpha with me? And in that moment I remember thinking, no, I don't, that sounds so weird. Like, I'm in this vulnerable place. It wouldn't make sense to come to a church after everything that happened. But I thought about it for all of 15 seconds more and decided, you know, like, okay, it's Alpha. I've heard about it. I've done the youth Alpha program when I was 14 probably. I was like, well, it's Christianity 101. You can't really go wrong with that. And if I don't like the way they're teaching it from the get-go, I won't have to go back. And Bethany was in the preparation group and she was a co-leader. So she had to come ahead of time. And so it may sound silly, but I went to the bar across the road and I had a drink because I'm like, I'm gonna go walk into a church for the first time in a couple years outside of Christmas and Easter services, and I did not know how I felt about it or if I even wanted to be here. And I walked through the doors and Bethany greets me at the door and tells me, oh, just talk to that guy at the counter. And there's Tim smiling back at me and he's like, hey, welcome, like, how are you doing? Bethany told me all about you. And I'm like, huh? I hope that's good stuff because Bethany doesn't really know me. And I remember walking from the counter to the glass doors, and all of a sudden I just felt at peace. And not many people know about this, but when I had that talk with Bethany before she invited me here, I wasn't sure if I was gonna make the night had I gone home on my own, because I really didn't want to do it anymore. I didn't want to be here. I didn't want to be alone in this new country on my own. And I felt a complete peace. I felt at home. And it was such a weird feeling because to me, church has always been work. It's always been a job. And although I loved serving and I was in love with the community, it had always been, oh, I love serving the community. I love being a servant to this community of people who love God. And I'd done that for so many years, and yet I'm only 29, but I've been in service since I was like 13. And that's a long time for anybody to mostly be giving away and not really taking the time to receive. And I felt so at peace and so at home when I was here. A couple weeks later, I had a chat with Tim, Pastor Tim, and we got to talking about just like me having completely changed my life and gone the opposite direction of God and the way I lived my life and the way I sort of led my life, feeling like I had to rectify that before coming back into the church and fixing myself. Or the phrase that Tim told me was, instead of us needing to believe before we belong, we get to belong before we believe, and we get to be a part of the community before we change our lives. And that in fact should inspire us to change our lives. And that was such a just complete change of mindset in my mind. And I remember calling my mom and I'm like, Mom, have you heard about this way of speaking before? And she's like, yeah, I have. And I know I didn't always raise you that way, even though I wanted to. And that may have been what was in my mind. We definitely taught you to behave before you were expected to belong or told to belong, or that you belonged. And I'm like, oh wow, okay, well, I'm gonna give this another chance. I kept going to Alpha, feeling extremely vulnerable, and every time I walked through the store, I'm sweating from anxiety, and I'm like, oh no, are they gonna smell my sweat? Are they gonna smell like that I'm so anxious coming into this place? But then it was such a good feeling that no one really asked about my background. No one really asked about how I'd been living my way, the wrong way or the right way. Just, hey, how are you doing today? How was your week? Do you want to chat? And it felt so good. So good. Because someone was just willing to see me today, not for what I've done in the past, not for what I did to deserve love. And then the Alpha Away weekend was, and I overslept, so I came in late, and I felt, I don't know, regretful that I'd shown up late, a little awkward. We weren't in our typical chat groups, so I was also getting to know new people, and I'm like, oh boy, like I don't know if I want to be here. Like, this is scary. But then at the end, like the final hour of the day, there was like a worship and prayer session. And I remember I was feeling frustrated with myself. I was feeling like disconnected, and I'm like, why am I here? What am I doing here? And I have a seat at the back of the hallway, and I'm like, fine, God, let's give it another try. Let's see if this can actually work. Let's see if you can be what everyone talks of you to be to me. Let's see if the wonderfulness of what everybody else speaks of can be something that I experience in my life. And in every Alpha session or in every Alpha meeting and night, there's always a little bit of worship in the beginning. And I remember standing there and stunted in the words because I couldn't formulate them from my heart because they didn't feel true. And they didn't feel real to my heart, that Jesus was the one and that God was a father. But that day, I think we were singing, "You're a good, good Father." I remember whispering to myself, "Are you a good, good Father?" And then being able to sing it out with all of my heart and not regretting a single word and not feeling uncomfortable in a single word. Like from that point on, like every service that I came to, it just like flowed out of my mouth, just like wonderful worship. And it was such a renewed feeling because I remember feeling this way before, in being able to lead people into worship, into this holy place in your heart, but then being completely like having this 3 to 5 years of completely being stunted from saying the words and them just not coming out of my mouth. And then on that day and from that point forward, being able to sing them out. And my brothers came to visit me on Easter, and we came both to the Good Friday service and the Sunday service. And my big brother crying, she's gonna make me cry. My big brother crying because he could hear the joy and he could hear the pureness of my heart in this worship and the complete change of my attitude towards life as a Christian. I don't think there is really a better testimony to how wonderful this place has been for me, that it's been so comforting and such a homey feel altogether, to feel so belonging, even though my life and my way of life hasn't necessarily changed all that much, just feeling like I belong and I get to belong no matter who I am, no matter where I come from. I get to be, and I am celebrated for coming and doing my best in trying to reach God and be a part of a community that just wants to love one another. And that is incredible.